Hi, Kep.
Hi, Marta.
So welcome to the Marta Wiley show.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about who you are and start with your name, your full name.
My name is Kep Tays, and that is a very broad question. I think what I've been calling myself lately is a professional tinkerer. So I love to play with things. I'm sort of a self-taught engineer, and I combine that with my passion for art and nature.
Yeah, you are an amazing artist and a multimedia genius.
Aw.
And I just wanted to talk about what you're doing these days. We met some years ago, and we know each other from college, even, I think, right?
It's been a couple decades or more.
College days. So I'm interested in what you're doing and the process that you're doing. So let's talk a little bit about your Sensorium.
Okay. So the Sensorium is a multi-sensory immersion experience. So the goal of it has been really to engage all the senses, not even just the five primary senses, but also our ability to sense pressure, our ability to know where our body is in space, all these other subtle sensory perceptions that we're able to do and calculate that we just don't even really think of on a daily basis. So the primary ones that you experience in this are vibration, which is experiencing tactile sound. You feel it moving through your body. And then you experience color and patterns of color through closed eyes, which is an interesting sensation. So those are the two primary experiential effects.
Well, like somebody who really doesn't know what this is, I look at it and I go, okay, this is a person that's immersed in some sort of artistic and computer kind of futuristic model. It almost looks like a science fiction movie.
Oh, good.
Doesn't it? And and she's being, you're saying that you're introducing sound into her body.
Exactly. So what this apparatus does is there's all these articulating wood spheres that are able to be positioned onto all these different parts of the body. These have silicone underneath them so that they can connect softly to your skull. And it directs musical vibration and sounds from nature. I'm mixing them live and combining them. So it's sort of like somebody once called it like a shamanic, like I'm a shamanic DJ. I thought that was kind of funny. So the whole idea with this apparatus, which, that's a whole nother funny thing. Some people are just terrified of it and other people are just intrigued because it is a very odd looking thing, but it's all function. The whole design of it is about function, and it is built so that you can place these wood spheres with pressure into the different points on the body, hands, feet, hips, shoulders, and it just connects the whole body with vibration. So it's able to essentially resonate your whole skeleton like a tuning fork with sound and music.
This is so cool. We have to do another interview where I'm actually like doing this.
We will.
So you are right now placing this ball on her hand, and it's vibrating the whole skeletal structure? Or
it does. Yes. This will start vibrating up her arm. And then I place ones into the hip and around the legs, and there's a little bit of pressure. And then also the whole body is cocooned in these weighted pillows. It's up to 100 pounds, if you can believe it, that I cocoon the whole body in. And this weight and pressure just it just seems to just universally calm people down, and it's a known technique. And I don't think anyone uses as much weight as I do, but people just seem to love it. So, and then the weight comes on and off, and the pillows are both heated and cooled. So you get the effects of different temperatures, which is another sensory perception. And that can be combined, like if you put cool pillows on the leg area and you have, say, ocean sounds coming in and then a little bit of mist and some blue lights, it just kind of sets the stage for your imagination to be on a beach, and you can have a little wind. I use fans to create even effects on the skin, which is another, our skin is also a sense organ, obviously, a way to perceive.
So are you using like hot and cold and stuff like that? Like, so you're using, and what about smells?
All different kinds of essential oils are integrated. Some of my favorite are frankincense, eucalyptus, of course, rose. And then at different points, I'll try and, loosely combine colors with smells. So say you bring in like a really deep green, you can bring in some mint smells. You can use so cool. Fuchsia lights. Yeah, it's just a way to kind of
like sending them into some sort of like dream world, basically.
It seems to do that, and then just playing around with the different colors and effects. It's just a backdrop for the imagination. It's just a nice way to let your imagination just roam.
So some of the things that you have here are like multisensory. Dreaming, PTSD, neuroscience, addiction recovery. Can you talk a little bit about the PTSD and the addiction recovery? I'm interested in how this would affect somebody who's going through, like, let's say, addiction.
Well, with addiction, I haven't done a series of sessions. There's been interest with it with recovery centers for obvious reasons. It's incredibly stimulating, but it's all very natural stimulus. Obviously, there's, it's a non-pharmacological way to put people in states that a lot of people compare to drug experiences, which is interesting.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing. Not that we're trying to recreate a drug experience, but it's very soothing, and it's so engaging that it's a way for people to experience this sort of heightened state of being without having to take drugs. So the process of working with somebody in addiction would involve a trained therapist, and that's just something that that is in the dream of this, of being able to work with therapists directly with clients. Right. I have done, as far as PTSD goes, I've done several vets. I offer it free to vets.
Oh, wow.
Or actually anybody suffering with PTSD. That's just something that I've just been offering. And the vets I've done just had these amazing experiences. There's a few testimonials on there, but they just felt, what's the word for it? People just often describe it as sort of a recalibration. It sounds kind of generic and of a term, and it's hard to put into words how it could help people with PTSD. But again, working with a trained therapist to put people in sort of these dreamlike trance states is just a way to help any kind of recovery process, I believe.
I know that there's a lot of people that are having anxiety, and PTSD is something that people are still trying to figure out. And I think what we spoke about before is this concept of like vibrational pharmaceuticals, you know what I mean? Like you're still working with light and sound and color, which is a type of, I mean, it's obviously affecting the cellular structure of emotions and the body. And we still don't have that much knowledge on it, even though it's been around for a long time. Can you talk about that?
Sure. The tactile sound or vibroacoustics, which is the technology that's used to deliver these vibrations into the body, has been around since the 80s. And there's been ongoing research with different types of equipment that integrate vibroacoustics, just showing how it lowers the heart rate, it changes brainwave states pretty quickly. And there's a lot of different studies on the vibroacoustics, just being able to really what they call it, they call it the relaxation response, which sounds, it's a very non-technical term, but that's what it is. And when it triggers the relaxation response, all kinds of amazing things can happen. You know, once you actually are deeply relaxed, which few people, I shouldn't say few people, many people forget how to relax, to really, really relax. We just are there's so much background noise. And so what I've seen with this over and over again is people going into this lucid dream state, different state of awareness. And with that comes this incredible relaxation. And so that is one of the most powerful things about it.
Do you think that PTSD and lucid dreaming are related? It's kind of a complicated question, but if I see, that all of this vibration, like these trapped emotions in PTSD, and how do you release this? It's almost like the body needs to go, or the mind needs to go to like a safe place.
Mm-hmm.
And then in that place, you kind of go into the release. I don't know. I don't know about it.
I can respond to that in the sense, I don't know if you've ever experienced lucid dreaming. I have gone in and out of having that experience in my life. And it's a state, if you aren't familiar with it, where you're just aware that you're dreaming. And so there's some amount of control in the dream.
Oh, that's so
and
cool.
And you have just a very different experience when you know you're dreaming. And there's vast research, incredible research on all the things that can be done in the lucid dream state. Everything from learning complex pieces of music to speaking with people, that have moved on, all kinds of wild things that people can draw from that state of mind. And so, yeah, I think that for PTSD, if you could go into these heightened states and just sort through the trauma, that it would be a really helpful tool to be able to see yourself. Like in a lot of times in lucid dreaming, they say, if you can remember, like if you're being chased, say example, which is a recurring theme, is to remember to just stop and turn around and face whatever it is, different things. If you're falling, to be aware that, so there's all these different ways once you become more, it's just self-awareness, I guess, that this could be a tool. It's a very untapped at this point. So it's hard to describe for me because I'm not really an expert in that area.
Well, it's a little bit like bringing the body to like a heightened state in a safe zone.
Yes.
And
yes.
I'm saying safety, I think, because it's like the emotions get trapped because we, at some point or another, we didn't feel safe. And then it just like builds and builds and builds and builds. And then that PTSD just, it's like triggered, everything is triggering everything. And your body is just going through like chemical reactions about something that's not there.
Yes.
Right. So then the sensorium is almost like putting you in a safe zone, like a cocoon, right? Because you say you put weights on them.
Yes, it does cocoon the whole body.
And what is the weight about? Like, how does that help?
It seems to universally calm the nervous system. And there's studies on the use of weights too. You know, there's all these weighted blankets that are readily available now. There's for autistic people, weight seems to be just a very, and what's interesting too is even people that I've put into this that are claustrophobic, they enjoy the weight. So I haven't really had anybody that couldn't stand it because of claustrophobia, which you would think it would trigger that. So it's interesting.
So do you think that the weight is somehow making people feel like they're not alone?
I think so. It's very comforting to people. And then, you know, depending if you heat the pillows, you know, that's just instantly relaxing also. And just the sense of pressure on the body creates just a sense of being held. A lot of people use that word. And then also when they come off, you know, if you've ever done something like carried something really heavy in your arms, say firewood or something, and you drop it down, and then your arms almost want to float up. So there's that sensation too that is orchestrated into the experience at different points to kind of create that light feeling. So it's the contrast of pressure and release and hot and cold and bright and totally dark, and it's just a lot of
going through all of this, releasing the emotions with vibration, color, weight, sound, hot and cold, the smell. And one of the things that I really like about this, and also what I really love about you, is that you're an artist, and you're tapping into something that is holistic and healing and moving towards, I think, something that is futuristic modality of healing. But you're also an artist, and it came from the roots of like that understanding. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I believe, you know, like many people, my greatest inspiration is nature. And you knew me when I was making masks, all from found objects, saguaro boots, and different types of bark. And I wanted to make costumery that was just completely made with, you know, things from the bush. And this is such an interesting contrast because it's so technological. It's completely reliant on computers and software, but ultimately what the experience is sounds of nature, all different types of environments, elemental forces, thunderstorms, ocean, wind. And so that's the ultimate artistry for me, is working with these elemental sounds and mixing them live with people. So it really feels like the ultimate tool for me to feel creative. And really, I'm just using nature. So I'm just working with nature is what it feels like. So that feels just, you know, very kind of can't go wrong.
What were you doing? Were you like always moving towards nature when you were a little kid?
Definitely. Always. Well, I grew up hunting and fishing and, you know, camping, which, you know, depending on your belief system, hunting and fishing is not really a great practice if you love nature, but that's a whole nother subject. And that introduced me to just feeling deeply connected to nature. And it just continued throughout my life.
And but like we said before, last time we were talking about, you know, you're an artist at the beginning, and you are getting your supplies from nature. You know, you're not going to the art store, you know, and getting art brushes. I mean, maybe you are, but this seems to me like when you do your masks and stuff, they picking up elements of nature.
Yes, those were always my favorite ones. And I did branch out and do different types of things, integrating other, textiles and things and color. And I guess to answer that question, I feel like there is a disconnect with people with nature a lot, just in our world, even myself. Even though I love it, it seems so difficult to break out of all the responsibilities and all of the schedules and everything that we have to do on a daily basis to actually just be in nature and be able to slow down enough to get something out of the experience. So that is another passion for me, is to be able to use this technology to kind of make that accessible for people, and also people that can't go into the wilderness. And so that's sort of the ones
that are like stuck in the city and just like they're doing their 9-to-5 grind, and they can go
exactly
to Sensorium and experience nature and sounds, and in a way that is, it's like you're bringing nature into the home.
Exactly. And the effects of that are fascinating, because different sounds from nature seem to trigger emotions, or not, well, emotions also, but memories is what I meant to say. So oftentimes, one of the most frequently occurring things is lightning storms and thunder. And I have hundreds of recordings of different types of storms and different types of thunder sounds. And people, it's really, because you don't realize how many types of frequencies come out of like pitter patter rain, and then really intense rain, and
memories too, because you could have a trapped memory of when you were a little girl looking at the rain or the thunderstorm.
Yes,
it triggers all that emotion or what happened there.
Yes.
So it's like psychotherapy. It's coming to a place where it's actually better than psychotherapy. I don't know. There's a lot of different ways to release trauma, but it seems to me like what you're doing is releasing trauma in a natural way, instead of through masking it through pharmaceuticals or even just speaking endlessly for years and still being angry 10 years later. Right?
It's a very nonverbal approach. And I do have a microphone that's piped in. So if somebody is really sensitive, I have worked with people that are really sensitive to stimulus and, kind of have a lot of different fears. So I will check in with them and just remind them to breathe, just very simple things, and just making sure that I feel connected to the person. Yeah. If they are, at all hesitant or have any fears coming up. But yes, just letting the purity of sound and color to just do its magic. It does it. I can't even begin to tell you how amazed I am almost after every session, the things that happen with people. I'm just blown away every time.
They're going through, like they're releasing trauma. They're going into lucid state dreams. They're going into maybe even a bliss or like a place of safety.
People have said that it was the first time that they had true wonder, which I don't know how that's possible. To me, just standing under a giant mountain inspires that. But a lot of people have not been exposed to majestic nature or really even been drawn to try to. So this is just a really interesting platform. And along with the sounds of nature are the incredible spectrum of music that's available to us. So somebody just yesterday, I did a session with somebody who just wanted very ambient, just super mellow, just space kind of sounds. And then the next person I did wanted like a tribal percussive, more intense type of rhythmic sounds. So usually I do a combination if somebody doesn't know exactly what they want, kind of take them on a roller coaster of mellow and more intense, but you can really cater it with acoustic or electronic. I tend not to use any music with any vocals in it. It just seems distracting for some reason.
Right. But you could, eventually you could also put, voice, kind of like meditative or,
all that could be incorporated. And I've tried it, and I just so far it hasn't seemed necessary.
Right. Well, this is an emotional, seems like a way to transcend emotions that are trapped.
I think so. And it's not something I'm doing. It's something that is just happening with people because they're relaxed and they feel safe, and they are they're shifted. Their heart rate slows down. They're able to just go into a different way of being. It seems, for no other word to be able to describe it. So it's a non-ordinary state of being.
And can you talk about this article here?
The Wall Street Journal article?
Yeah.
So I had one of the first versions of this at Miraval, which is a world-renowned spa, and it was getting a lot of attention, a lot of acclaim at the time. People just, absolutely loved it and had never experienced anything like it. And it was actually a primitive version of what I'm working with now. So I'm excited for more people to experience this evolved version. But I took it to New York through Miraval, and a journalist from the Wall Street Journal got interested in it and came out. It was actually on her birthday. She came out and experienced it and wrote a really interesting article about it. And it was exciting. It was fun to kind of hit the, mainstream media with it.
Yeah, it's great.
It's been kind of underground for the most part in this next phase of development, really getting all the technology together and the new apparatus. So this may be the beginning of the next phase of really getting it out to people. So I'm excited about that. So thank you for helping to do that.
Well, thank you for doing this. That's not easy to be an artist, to be, like bringing nature into society and figuring out a way to do it. I'm sure. I mean, how long did it take you to create your invention?
I've kind of lost track, but I think the last I counted is I've been working on this about 15 years, and there's been breaks in between, like a lot of art, frustration, having a hard time reaching people, trying to market it because it is such an odd thing. It's difficult to market in some ways, and just finding a way to have it in the right place where it would be accessible for people has been a challenge. So, but it's always been a top priority, and we're gonna get it out there.
Yeah, so they have to come to you and contact you on your website and Facebook, and then set up sessions with you.
Yes.
You're basically one of a kind.
It really is an original.
Yeah, it's doing what you're doing the way that you're doing it, like with the machine that you've created.
It's original. I thought by now that somebody may have copied it, but it's just no one wants to rebuild that, I guess, or I don't know. So far, nobody's even tried. So,
right. So that's why you're an artist.
Well, right.
You're like, I always say artists are like the police of the universe. and we go, I know I always get a kind of funny look at this, but something that I learned at an early age is that artists go places that most people won't go. And then they make it cool or safe or interesting. And then everyone kind of goes there because the artist went first, right? And you could say, oh, the artists are dispensable, right, to industry. Or you could say they are the police of the universe, you know? They're going to go places that most people are not going to go. And
bring justice.
what?
And bring justice.
And bring justice to the universe, galaxy. Yeah. So you're tapping into something that is artistic, but then medical, and then futuristic. Is that how you perceive it, or how do you perceive your?
Yes, I think that coming from a place of being a complete skeptic most of my life about healing modalities, anything, even like sound healing, I can talk a little bit about this. I was skeptical of it. I was playing didgeridoo. That's one of the things that inspired this, and playing it for people on their bodies. And I could tell it was having a really interesting effect, but I guess just didn't have the real science behind how sound could affect the body and the brain. And so I was skeptical of it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was interesting, but I was like, sound healing, you know, that's just how my mind is. So as much as this thing looks new agey and, foo-foo-y, that's not really where I've been coming from with it. I've been coming from with it, I think originally, like you're saying, just art, like just the experiential art, like kind of the sort of like an amusement park ride in a sense. There's mists going off. I loved all those kinds of adventures.
Yeah, it's like you're going into artists have a little bit of a child still alive inside of them.
Yes.
And it's interesting that child, has access to heavenly divine knowledge.
Well, I think that's something that we're all tapping into all the time. Something that reminded me that I forgot to mention with this is, as being a kid, is I was always obsessed with flying. And that's one of the recurring themes that people have with this is flying. And one of the other
well, that's cool.
One of the other aspects of this that I forgot to mention, that's another sensory perception, is the movement of it. So it raises your body and tilts your body into different positions, lifts your legs, lowers your head. And I do it really slowly and move it, like, say, during the sounds of an ocean or something, so you could feel like you're floating.
Oh, so the whole thing is moving.
It moves also on hydraulics.
That is crazy.
So
you feel like you're like in space or moving or flying.
It does, and it's very, very subtle. And it was an accidental discovery, because originally I had it to just be able to tilt and put people into comfortable positions. But then I realized that the subtle movement was creating these unbelievable effects. Somebody said they felt like they were like in the space shuttle and the door opened and they just drifted out. Other people felt their bodies like elongating, just wild stuff. And I'm just like tilting them around a little bit, but they're already in this heightened state.
Right.
And so your brain is just working overtime, trying to take it all in. And what happens is, with all that, it actually quiets the mind. It's that trance thing where you're tracking so many things at once that you just kind of go into a different way of perceiving things.
Right. Yeah. I think it's interesting the way that it goes into that lucid state to release PTSD and trauma and addiction recovery. And it has that art flair to it. In other words, experimental art, right? It's interactive art.
Yes.
And potentially like the thing that people will go to in the future, like, have you gone to your sensorium yet? You're acting quite
You seem a little tense.
over the top. You need to notch it down a bit. And I'm interested in that because number one, it can help people. And number two, I think masking all of the trauma with the wrong things is making it worse. Like, just mask it with another Netflix movie, just mask it with another drug, just mask it with another fake friend, just mask it, you know? And instead of getting to the root of the problem, which is an emotional, psychological, vibrational problem, right?
I think that's well said. Well said.
And so it's like the way to get real, but still, I think I'm not exactly sure if people are treating this stuff as real. How have you dealt with that rejection or just people not understanding what you're doing?
Well, interestingly, even though this stuff has been around, you know, different aspects of this type of therapy, most people have just not been exposed to it. And so the people that even the skeptics that have had the experience, it's almost universal that people enjoy it. And so really the rejection that I've had so far is just not being able to get people in because it looks a little kooky, you know, to some people. It's like,
you want me to get in that?
They're like, it looks like a torture chamber, and I'm like, no, it's a bliss chamber. It's the opposite.
Right.
But you know, it has it can be menacing, intimidating looking, all these different things.
Well, that's interesting.
So that is
envelop them.
Yes, there is some anxiety around, and also there's, I think, even some fear of people, you know, because they hear that it can kind of create like a psychedelic effect. I think there's some fear of that with some people, of kind of even wanting to go into a non-ordinary state. That sounds like the unknown, and so.
Well, I'm in an ordinary state all the time.
Well, there you go. You'll be fine. You'll be fine.
I don't think I would be afraid of that.
I call it an altered state of consciousness, but you know, pick your word.
Yeah.
So
it's maybe they're apprehensive about releasing certain traumas that maybe they know it's going to work, and they're not ready to.
Maybe there's that, or maybe it's just because it's black and it has all these arms and it looks like a giant octopus spider thing. I don't know. But
put it in like a white bubble.
Well, exactly. You know, now I have white fur all over the top of it, so that helps to make it look a little more.
Pink little bobbles.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just a kitten.
So people will get there, and like you said, it's just as more people do it and sort of pave the way, and so that other people know it's safe, and you know, that's happening.
Do you think that it has to do with people not understanding frequency, color, and vibration and energy, like that, or do you think that most of the world now understands chi and healing frequencies and healing energy, or are they still kind of in the dark?
I think certainly there's just so much more acceptance of that. And like I said earlier, I was a skeptic of sound healing at first. I was a skeptic of color and light therapy because I just thought, how can that, you know, yeah, sure, it can be relaxing. But the more research I did, I found that, you know, colors are actually like vitamins to our brain. It's just, you know, it's hard to wrap your head around some of the science, but it's out there. And so I think that that's getting out there more and more. And certainly, you know, just anyone who's ever looked at a piece of art and just, you know, gone into that, you know, that just state of wonder can understand that. So as far as the science of it, I think there's a lot more information, and I think there's a lot more acceptance. And I think that there's a huge trend even of people, obviously looking for all these, alternative modalities and
Right.
ways of working with trauma. And there's a huge interest that I haven't explored with this yet of combining, medical doses of psychedelics through a therapist in conjunction with something like this.
Wow. Right.
So, the psilocybins and the ketamines, there's all that therapy going on that I'm excited about combining with this.
Right. And just like having it at hospitals, the sensorium room, send them to a place where they can, open their third eye in a safe way. There's no drugs involved. There's no pharmaceuticals involved. There's no hallucinogenics involved. It's all natural sounds, which is what I really love about it.
It'd be better than laying there watching a TV program to try and heal from something, and it actually, there's so many things that vibration do physiologically. It increases blood circulation,
Right.
Just that alone, just slowing the heart rate. There's all these things that it does.
Yeah.
And something I wanted to mention is, about working in sort of a medical environment. One of the things that I'm just dreaming of being able to do is to finish the mobile sensorium and to be able to work with people in hospice, to help them transition, people that are in pain, because I don't make any claims to it, but you can listen to a lot of people talk about it and say that it released their pain. That's an incredible thing, whether it's just because they're relaxed or just because the vibration just loosens everything up. So it'd be amazing to be able to help people transition.
Just transcending pain in general is like one of the amazing things. If you can live life with just, let's say, a decreased level of pain and an increase in joy, isn't that what people want? That's really what they're looking for.
Exactly. And I think that, there's so many ways you can do that. And this is an experience that I've only worked with a few people doing multiple sessions, but that's the dream, is to be able to, make it more accessible to people to come in for a tune-up, come in and just get energized with some really upbeat, uplifting type music. And,
right.
And so I'm actually
release in a natural way. And It's also interesting, two things I'm thinking about. One is when you increase the vibration, like we were talking about, in the body, it releases a lot of trauma and a lot of anxiety and stress, and it creates like a psychochemical reaction in the body. But also in the third eye, because of the calcified pineal gland and all these different things that we're dealing with in society, that vibration can actually release some of that calcium, and which could probably why they're going into a lucid state. Yeah, so can you talk a little bit about the pineal gland, or maybe like the vibration causing the calcification to slough off the pineal, or how do you think that is affecting the head area?
That's something that I haven't researched. I'd like to hear your the information that you have about it, and then I can talk about what I think is happening with the vibration as far as how the sensorium is affecting the pineal.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I think is interesting about what you're doing is that you're bringing vibration into the system, right? So you're like shaking up things that normally wouldn't be shaken. And then if there is, I know that lucid states are related to the pineal gland. And it's interesting to me to think that you can have a vibration happening that is actually inducing a lucid state naturally, right? It's like, it's it's so simple that it's art.
It is. What I love about this is the merging of art and science, and
Right.
that's the most incredible thing. And what just to speak a little bit more about the fluids and the pineal gland, which I'm not any expert on the brain at all, but how you were talking about vibrating the fluids, and because I'm connecting the top of the head, crown chakra, if you want to call it that, and then also this area here, which third eye, or it's directly above the pineal, it's resonating your whole head, and that sounds intense, but because the vibration is so soothing, it's all, people universally are just like, they just love it.
Right.
And I think that getting those I think it's synovial fluids, or I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, brain juices vibrating there, that is having an effect. I never thought of it that way, but then also just vibrating the brain, because the whole skull is resonating. And
especially if you're doing it with frequency, because frequency already resonates on a cellular level, but now you're introducing the actual physical vibration. I imagine if it sloughs off some of the calcium that builds up from the fluoride in the water and all the different stuff
that would be amazing. I have no idea it's doing that.
Yeah, I think that might have one of the reasons why they're going into lucid states, into lucid dreaming.
Yeah. I definitely have had people with really intense arthritis have a lot of release. So
yeah, because also the calcium is being broken up in the
and increased circulation and
increased circulation. So you're addressing a lot of physiological shifts in the body, and it's gentle. It's not forced. You're not forcing it, any substances into the system. Everything is just like nature, like what nature does, right? When we're sitting up against a tree and it's vibrating with the wind and the frequency and the light and the sound. And so
I like that. I think what's also really neat about it is that, unlike a lot of medical treatments, it's actually incredibly fun and entertaining. So time goes by, people are always just like, what? That was 50 minutes? They can't believe, it's often been called a time machine and different things, which of course I love that, a spacecraft, whatever. But people have called it like a wormhole, just because time gets so speeded and slowed down.
Okay.
It seems almost hokey to talk about it in some of these terms, because it's just like, what?
But you're
see people talk about it. It's just, that's to me is the marketing at this point. It's just totally skeletal, and then it's all about the testimonials. It's like, I don't know how it's doing it, but these people this is what people are experiencing.
Right.
So it's really just fascinating to see what people say. It's just incredible.
Yeah. So where can they find you? Where can they meet you? You have a contact here.
The website is probably the best way. Of course, people can just text me directly. They can email me. And I'm currently in Tucson right now and looking to go on a tour with the Sensorium, probably starting in Sedona.
Okay.
Do sort of 3 or 4 months at a time in different places with it. So that'll make it more accessible as well.
And you have a Facebook page?
I do. It's not very together, though. That's something
you still
put a lot of creativity into at this point.
And you have a Instagram?
Yes.
And the Instagram is?
There's my personal Instagram, Keptaiz, Keptaiz, yes. And then there's also Sensorium Experience Instagram, which is doesn't have as much on it yet, but that's the goal, is to get that going.
Okay. And if they want to do a session with you, they can go to your Facebook page and send you a message, or or your website.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think what you're doing is really amazing, and I'm interested to see how it evolves in society, and how it evolves with you and in your connections with the medical. It's like you're bridging the art and the medical together.
That really will be the ultimate.
Right? I mean, I think that's why it's a little abstract for people to think about and to understand, because it's still on that edge of creativity.
Yes.
Correct. You know, it's the right thing to do, I think, in order to address PTSD.
It's certainly, I think, a tool that a lot of people could benefit from and integrate in with different types of therapies. And just to note, I was recently corrected, or updated, I should say, on the use of the word PTSD. They're now just calling it PTS instead of explaining it as a disorder. So it's an ever evolving field, and it's so complicated that they're even changing the name of it, trying to figure out how to deal with it. You know?
I think anxiety in general, if we don't address our anxiety, it can become a disorder if we're just releasing and raging on other people, and not addressing our own traumas, our own sadness, and all that stuff. And I think, yes, the PTSD, taking the disorder out of it, is interesting, because we're always in a state of, heightened awareness. Like, at any point, you see the birds, are they like suffering from PTSD? Probably not. They're just like releasing certain pheromones and chemicals because they see a shadow and they're off and running, right? So you could say that a bird is in constant state of fight or flight, or you could say it's just nature. We're just evolving with nature. And that's something that I like about you and how you're approaching these things, is that it's not necessarily a disorder. It's just something that helps you go back into a state of flow with nature. And another thing that I was thinking about your invention also is that it's like a hands off. There's nobody touching you. It's not like a masseuse or an acupuncturist, right?
Well, interestingly, that's optional. And that's something that I've experimented with different people. I will do hands-on, very simple types of touch to the feet, different acupressure points. For some people, it's distracting. For some people, it's very comforting. And for me, it's been really amazing to just see how just touching somebody and just sending them love, just the simple, laying on of hands of somebody is a really incredible way to care for somebody. It doesn't work for everybody,
right?
But I've enjoyed it.
And you allow people to have that option, right? Because there's some people that experience, they don't want to go to a masseuse. They don't want to have a energy going on top of their already stressful energy from, you know what I mean? So there's something about what you're doing is also, it's just them and this, machine that was built to have those natural frequencies come through.
It's like you're being touched by nature. And there's a non-human element to it that is very safe.
In a way where there's not a bear that's going to come at you.
Well, exactly. Although I've thought about at different points. I had somebody in for a session on Halloween, and I did bring up some little wolf sounds out in the distance of the forest. Just, add a little
primal fear is okay, as long as it's not for real. So that's why the real Netflix movie is happening in the third eye.
Well, exactly. Exactly.
And this to me sounds like you're teaching people how to tap back into their real Netflix movie, right? And then soar into a lucid state in a safe way, because you're not in nature where a predator can come at you. And you're not putting them completely out with some sort of drug so that any other predator can mess with them. You're putting them in a state of basic safety.
Yes. And I would in no way say that this is a replacement for nature, because there's just nothing like just being immersed in the creation. But it's a reflection of that. And so, not confuse it with this being an alternative to that. I think that's...
and not confusing it with being an alternative to medicine and
exactly.
psychotherapy and all these different things. But it's something that to me is interesting because it's right on the cusp of being creative and being medicinal.
Yes.
And it's up to each person to play around with something that is fun, like it has a fun element, like a child.
Absolutely. That, I think that childlike curiosity and just that sort of, like we're going on a fun ride. I call it taking people for a ride sometimes. So
on a lucid roller coaster.
A magic carpet, yes.
Yeah, so I just think it's brilliant. I think you're brilliant. I think that, I've been watching your work for the last couple of years, and I've seen that you've done other things too. And I would just say anybody that's seen this video to go and check out Kep's website and Instagram and Facebook, and get to know that side of art and the futuristic part of art, the functional side of art, I think is something to discover and to allow yourself to move into that space, not just as an individual, but as society. And I think that you're on the cusp of that. So thank you so much for having the time to talk with me today and to show us your invention and what you're working on.
Super exciting. Very, very excited to reach as many people as possible with this. So thank you for helping to make that possible, Marta.
Yay. Okay, so again, let's just go one last time to your website. And the website is Sensorium.com. And then there's the Instagram and Facebook. Cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about before we go?
I feel like this is really an opportunity to help inspire other people's creativity as well, which is something that is really incredibly exciting to see other people just that's the most rewarding thing for me, is to see people relax and then also see them be inspired. So it's kind of, and then also I learn so much from each person about how to evolve it. So it's really a co-creative and inspirational for me as well to see other people, how they explore and create and how their minds work.
You're like helping them release their creativity so that so you can see that
It makes me feel more creative. Exactly. Exactly.
it's really interesting. People don't really understand where creativity comes from, where inspiration comes from. And I think it's interesting that if you're helping people release some of that pineal, those brain chemicals in a healthy state, that you're actually bringing that kind of inspiration into them. And I think I always said that art is, it is a type of ultimate functional experience. It has to become it has to be creative first. Anything that has ever been, you know, the computer that we're working on at one point had to be creative. The cup that I'm drinking from was designed by somebody, right? And so if you just look at art as a painting, then it's just a painting. But if you look at everything as art, then you're like, oh my gosh, you know, creativity becomes endless, right?
Well, you're the perfect person to you know, be an example for that, of somebody who's just nonstop producing, creating, expanding, you know. So you're an inspiration to us all as for seeing everything as art. And
thank you.
Thank you for seeing the potential of this project.
Yeah, and if I wasn't an artist, I probably would be like, what is he doing?
What kind of kook is this?
What crazy person is this? Right? Lock him up. Yeah, thinking outside the box is really important. And I think that that's something that you're doing. You're thinking outside the box and you're creating something that has never really been done before in your way. It's totally original. And I think it takes a lot of courage to be original.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you so much for having me. Thanks. I can't wait to get you in and do a follow-up with your
let's do another video, and when I'm there actually experiencing it, and then after.
Yes, fantastic.
Speak, Martha, speak. I'll be in that lucid state.
Well, we'll like, you're already there, so it won't probably seem any different.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah, it's like, how do you, that'll be an interesting experiment with you.
Yeah, maybe you'll be like, I knew I could send her to the next paradigm.
Actually, you're going to probably be out, you come out and feel all normal.
I ruined your creativity. Oh, okay. Thank you so much.
All right.
This conversation was so fun, and I totally believe in what you're doing. I think people are going to go to your website and go hang out with you, and I would just appreciate also being able to do it one day, and we'll do another video then. So.
All right. Looking forward.
Okay.
Thank you all. Bye.